Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this 9 a.m. Mountain Time session of Pinpoint. We're going to give a bunch of our developers, a bunch of Smarty developers, the hot seat and ask them questions that have not been approved by legal yet. So this should be fun. All right, in this session, we have Savannah Ryan. I'm going to go around the horn according to my setup. Savannah Ryan, Brian Amundsen, Braden Lewis, Lyle Derland, Adam Charlton, Camille Blanche, and Kent Jividen. All genius developers, I'm sure, that we'll learn more about them. We'll kick into our Q&A. I have a couple of softball seed questions, so to speak. But if you guys have questions, I mean, if you're going to get out of this what you hope to, that's by asking your own questions. So send those into the chat or into the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those as we can. All right, so let's kick it off with just a couple of getting to know you questions. By a raise of hands, how many of you, 5, 1, 2, 6, 7 people, have university degrees? I'll raise my hand too, but I'm not a developer. Okay, cool. How many of you have degrees in computer science? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of you. Awesome. Lyle, tell us what your degree's in.
Music, actually. Yeah, music composition.
That's
It totally prepared me for this role.
I'm sure. Some roles you just fall into because you're good at it, I guess. That's awesome. And then how many, by the show of fingers, how many years have you guys been in programming, in developing, in software development?
Don't have that many fingers. I'm going to have to do this 4 times.
4 times?
Yeah.
You're not even
39 years, but still.
Fun. Savannah got the balloons to trigger.
I did not know my reactions were on.
Well, yeah, I must have mine turned off.
Awesome. And then how many of you, because Utah is the home of Smarty, and we are not a remote office. We are a come into the office, put your butts in seats work environment, except for today, wherein 1, 2, 3, 4 of you are working from home, which is great. You guys have good internet at home, so that's good. But how many of you were born in Utah? Okay, all of you. How many of you were raised in Utah? Less. Okay, that's great. So that's a little bit of our diverse dynamic that we can talk about here. This is great. Okay, so now we're going to get into the address and software related questions. So number one, this is a question that comes up in a lot of different webinars that I've done. How do you handle, as address data nerds, how do you handle the inevitable, but Google Maps shows this address exists, but Smarty's giving me a not valid result? Maybe I don't, Kent, since you're the head of our development team, how about you either give us an answer or assign us someone that would be good at answering?
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's see Adam, you want to take that one?
You know, I knew this question would be kicked my way the second that I heard it, right? Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So one of the main reasons why it's like, hey, Google gets this address, why doesn't Smarty say it exists? Is because they really, like Google Maps and related products and Smarty products really exist for a different purpose. Google's main priority is just being able to return something to the user, which really doesn't work for validation services like what Smarty offers. The Smarty's main question that it tries to answer is, does this address exist? That's what validation is at its core. The reason why we do that is because it provides better information for our users, so that they can make meaningful business decisions regarding that information. Google's main question is, where is this address, even if it doesn't exist? And so trying to say, like, Google get this address and Smarty doesn't, like, yeah, that's what makes Smarty really good, is because we are comfortable saying no when we feel comfortable that an address does not exist. And that's what makes Smarty products reliable, is our confidence in being able to say no.
That's great. I think it's funny too that we focus interpersonally. They say that one of the best soft skills to learn is to learn how to say no when you're overwhelmed or when the answer is no, but we're afraid to say no. We want to say yes as often as we can because then people will like us. And I think there are other address verification tools that do lean toward the yes, begging for your approval and love instead of the truth, which is no some of the time. Great. Um, let's see. How do you deal with so many different languages within the international tool set? Who would be best at answering an international tool set question?
Yeah, I guess I could. How do we deal with so many languages?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just absolute confusion, but no, we do our best. We have some data sources that we rely upon, and they are experts in languages much more than we are. However, what's interesting is because we're in Utah and there's a lot of uh, missionaries from a well-known church, we learn a lot of languages. We have a lot of people with language skills. Like Adam speaks Japanese and Kent speaks Spanish, and so does Savannah and Camille. I'm not sure about you, but
Just English for me. I know a little
yeah,
bit of Spanish and Portuguese.
yeah, just English for me too. But anyway, we utilize those skills. There are some times where we do go over to Adam and say, "I have no idea what this kanji means," or whatever. And we use Google Translate as well. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. We just barely had an Arabic issue in international that we tried to work out, and successfully. We're going to deploy a new version today that fixes an Arabic issue. So
Awesome. So you're saying essentially it's the skilled people that we have. We have amazing people, probably the best people anywhere. That's great. That's great.
I would say that's true.
It's one of our unique skill sets. Sorry to jump in, but I also want to give a shout out to Braden too, who also speaks Tagalog. And so, I mean, even on this call, we have 4 different languages in attendance, and this is more or less a fairly random sampling of the people that we have here at Smarty. Like we have a pretty good diverse group here.
It's true. I think our website on our company page says that we speak 14 languages, something like that, across the company. Speaking of diversity, a question here is, I know that Smarty is diverse across multiple cloud environments. Is everything developed in-house instead of utilizing third-party systems like API gateways, etc.? And I know that there's a potential for risk with proprietary data. So obviously, I'm going to give that question to Kent.
Yeah, I can help with that. So, I mean, we do use some cloud utilities that are off the shelf, right? But one thing that's really nice, like in this last outage with the AWS outage, and there's been a couple of cloud provider outages recently, we are cloud agnostic, so we can run in almost any cloud environment. And so we were not affected by the AWS outage, for example. And so we do run in different cloud environments, and a lot of those tools are homegrown. We do, for cloud deployments and so on, we do use some standard cloud deployment tools, but we also like to build what we have versus buy off the shelf a lot, because we have a lot more control over what happens. We're less susceptible to dependency injection attacks and things like that. And so we're also not tied to one cloud provider like AWS or GCS or any of those, and we can deploy across multiple environments and have really high uptimes and so on as far as our ops are concerned. So yes, we have some off-the-shelf tools, but at all possible, we like to build what we can because we have more control and it helps for security purposes also.
Excellent. I'm trying to see if we had any other questions about security here. Oh, yeah, I guess this is another one along that line. So how is it possible that a web service like Smarty wasn't impacted at all by AWS and other outages? I remember there was a big one. Was it earlier this year or last year?
That was like last month. Yeah, there was a huge AWS outage that affected the East containers. And so, but we are not affected by that at all, because we have a diverse cloud environment across, and the nice thing about that is we can dynamically change that as needed. So we can be in any cloud environment that's needed. So
Mm.
yeah, there was a couple others with, I think CloudStrike had one, I think Azure had one. There's been for whatever reason this month, this month and last month, there's been a number of cloud outages with DNS and so on. And the nice thing is that, like I said, we're able to deploy across multiple data centers and environments, so we're not as affected as many other companies are.
Awesome, thank you. Kent, you want to assign this question out to someone? Why do some addresses seem to exist everywhere except the gosh dang USPS database? You're muted, but I want to say,
Savannah, you want to tackle that one a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk about this one a little bit. So sometimes addresses or new addresses, like something that, like one example I can always think of is new builds. My neighborhood is a new build. For the longest time, the USPS did not have my address, and it was so annoying when I tried to ship packages. Not that I buy a lot of stuff online, but it was the most annoying thing. But Smarty could always find my address, and it's because there are other data sources that we are able to utilize and other ways that we're able to interpolate data that we can find addresses that we know will exist or the USPS will know exists eventually, but don't exist in their database quite yet. And the USPS is pretty good. They update regularly, right? And so, especially with new builds, at least that's the example I can think of, they're able to get those addresses eventually. But I don't know. Sometimes USPS is just a little bit slower than other data sources, I guess, or a little bit slower than us.
yeah, it must be a government agency.
And we have a whole set of non-postals that we flag in our systems around that.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of addresses that we know about that aren't necessarily known about in USPS.
So here's a follow-up question with non-postals or non-USPS addresses, specifically for Camille. Camille's the only person here I see that's on our front-end development team. How do the non-postals and Smarty's knowledge of them impact our address autocomplete and other front-facing tools?
Yeah, so by default, with the US Autocomplete API, it will only include, excuse me, it will only be including the mailable addresses or the postal addresses, but there's the option where you can turn on the non-postal addresses to show those too. And it depends on your use case if you're going to be wanting to include those or not in your autocomplete suggestions. So if you're shipping things or mailing things, you're going to probably want to just include the mailable addresses only. So you're not shipping to addresses that don't actually receive mail. But I talked about this in the session yesterday I was in. If you're a company like Uber, or maybe it's a serviceable check, you're going to want to maybe include those non-postable addresses. Well, maybe serviceable checks you do want. It just depends. Depends on what that is exactly when you're doing. But for things like Uber, they can pick you up anywhere. It doesn't have to be actually at a house somewhere that receives mail. It could be in between two houses. So having the suggestions for the non-postal addresses is going to be beneficial in that case.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, question for the whole team. Do you guys have a favorite weird address or interesting address quirk that you've learned about since you've been working with addresses at Smarty?
I can comment on the international side. It's interesting with with USPS addresses or US addresses. They seem to fit the same format, primary address and predirection and so on. When we started working very heavily with Netherlands, it's completely opposite. You specify the street first, and then you may specify the postal code, and then you may specify a building number. So it is just truly fascinating how other countries have developed address standards. It's an interesting topic.
And along with that, and I work primarily with US data, but it's interesting to see how people abuse those address standards in order to create really wacky scenarios. Weird addresses is sort of a passion of mine within the US address system. One of my favorites is someone who named their little dirt road that just extends pretty much just out to their house. And it's 2, so the number 2, lazy 2, and then road. And, apparently looking at this dirt road, they didn't want to pave it, so they just called it 2 lazy 2 road. and everything looks perfect. It's well formatted. The 2 is the house number. Road is actually the street suffix. So like they formatted it perfectly, but they're abusing the system to make a statement. And weird addresses like that are always they're fun to see going through the address data that we have.
Yeah, thank you. Any others? Braden, I know you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah, so I was just going to talk about some of my time in the Philippines a little bit. So it's interesting. These are addresses that are really hard for us to match here at Smarty. But a lot of the times, the way that they would express addresses would be second yellow house down this Escanita, which is like a really skinny street. And they would describe it based off of landmarks. And so it's hard to do deliverable mail to places like that when addresses aren't really enforced. You don't have a number and a street, but rather you're navigating based off of those landmarks. So those are just some of the strange ones that I've seen.
Awesome. Any others?
There's a neighborhood in California that has like all their streets are like named after like the devil. So you have like Devil Road or El Diablo Street. And I just think that's hilarious because it's like up in the foothills on this little mountain. It's just this little neighborhood that named all their streets something like that. And so I just think that's fun. I just think it's clever when people do stuff like that.
Yeah.
From the hell neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, and it's surrounding Black Mountains, so I thought that was pretty interesting too.
In the center of the Black Mountains, at the heart of the hell neighborhood on Diablo Street, number 666. That's
It
great.
sounds like the start of a sitcom, you know?
An Addams Family, something. That's great. Lyle, you've been doing what a great support person would do, sitting quietly waiting for a problem. This is great. So here's a problem for you, Lyle.
Okay.
What do you think are the most common mistakes that you've seen in your experience made by Smarty's users when setting up for address verification? And maybe you can give us a little bit of your background at Smarty. I know you're not in support, but you have a background in support. So do you want to tell us a story?
Sure. Do you want the 7-hour answer, or should I keep it to the 3-minute answer?
20 minutes max?
So yeah, I worked for a long time, probably just a little under 10 years in the tech support team, sometimes leading that team. And then I've transitioned over. I'm in a pre-sales engineer role, which is kind of like technical support in a sales context. But I've kind of lived in the space between technical people and the layperson. And and also just troubleshooting in general. So problems that come in. And I mean, if I had to pick one, the most important one maybe would be to recommend. I'm always having to tell this to people. Make sure that when you call our US Street Address API, you do set the match parameter intentionally. Set it to enhanced. It's one that we've noticed lately that some people, even after years of us introducing this, some people are still not doing that, and we'd highly recommend that. Just set match equals enhanced in the API call. That way, you're getting access to our best matching logic and access to all those non-USPS addresses that we have. So that's a big one. Just kind of a best practice. Certainly, I mean, we'll see authentication errors. We'll see occasionally rate limit errors, the different status codes. Those are all documented pretty well. And I will put a big shout out to our tech support team. If anyone out there does not know how good of an experience the chat is, go to smarty.com and just for the heck of it, click on the chat icon, and within a few seconds, you're talking to a competent human who can actually answer your question. So I'll just end with a little plug there. Do take advantage of that.
You can try it right now. You want to make their day? Everybody on this session, go to smarty.com, click the little chat in the bottom right corner, and say hi. It'll make them wake up. It'll
Yeah,
be great.
Lyle, I was just about to say they're going to love you over there for everyone else all over there just to chat about their day, right?
So a follow-up question on your advice there, Lyle. If that's the expected use case, why not make that the default?
Great question. That's a valid question. And the reason we can't make it the default is because we have too many people. We would break people. We have too many people who are already in their code assuming the default value of match equals strict. And so to just make that the default, I mean, we would have to do such a communication campaign that it would still be impossible to make the smooth transition there. So instead, it's a new option. I mean, relatively as of a few years ago, this match equals enhanced. We do recommend it for everyone, but we can't make it the default because we'd break people basically at this point. But we do highlight it in the documentation, and whenever it comes up naturally in these kinds of environments or in technical questions, then we try to emphasize it.
So it's kind of chicken and the egg situation. Like we happened to set it up this way originally to be default, and then we came out with this
Right.
enhanced, and we have so many people already built into this.
Right. The system was set up many years before we had the enhanced matching option. And so at this point, to redo it as the default would kind of break people too much. So that's why.
Excellent. Kent, I see you've unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to say, but with that said, we do highly recommend people migrate to that enhanced mode, and we'll be happy to help people do that and answer any questions they might have as they make that transition. And hopefully at some point, we will get, everybody over to the enhanced mode, because there are some significant benefits to that mode from what the default would be.
Sure. Maybe when we have transitioned enough people, then we can switch it to be the default or something like that.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, we'd love that.
See, we would love it as much as you guys would. I think that's what we're learning here. Okay, another question here. Actually, before I ask this question, let's segue a little bit into your expertise. So again, by the raise of hands, who here is currently working with the US address verification tool? 1, 2, 3, 4 of you. Savannah, what's this mean?
I kind of bounce back and forth right now between the US tool and the international tool. So I'm kind of working a little bit on both.
Okay, very cool. And then how many here are working on the international tool?
That would be me. And I also switch back and forth between US enrichment and US autocomplete as well.
Yeah.
But not the verification product, not the US Street verification.
Very cool. And then how many of you are working on our autocomplete tools? 1. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And then what about our geocoding tools? Nobody. We don't have geocoding tools. We do. I just didn't pull from that group set, I guess.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole group that is not represented here. So.
Oh man. There was one person, I don't even know if he does it. We had Ryan. Ryan was on.
Yeah.
I don't know if he works on geocoding, but he was.
He does, yeah.
Adam and Savannah do too, through the US Street API, and so does Braden.
Yeah, if there's questions about geocoding, we have enough representation here that we can definitely get it answered.
Oh, well, if that's the case, is there a way for customers to use geocodes or Smarty data to connect it to Google and then use the Smarty data to have Google show the location? So it's like using Google as the GIS tool.
Yes, there is actually. So Google does have a kind of make your own maps thing. You can lay over different layers. You can import things. I think that like CSV is one. I think you can do KML files. There's a few different formats like that. And you can lay it over Google's imagery, and then you can visualize geocodes and lines and things like that. I actually use this tool fairly commonly for visualizing hikes and how far they're going to be. But yeah, that's a great way to visualize some of Smarty's data. You can also do that in QGIS.
Excellent. I think that we still do it. When you run an address through our single address tool, which you don't even have to have an account to do, you can just go to smarty.com, find the single address tool. It'll give you a map that is a Google map. It'll even give you the latitude and longitude of that location. You can even take that latitude and longitude and take it anywhere else and get a pin exactly where that is. So there's definitely capabilities there.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Andrew, because I wanted to bring that up too. And I believe we still have it on the single address tool. Below that map, there's a compare with Google Maps, and it'll open up a new tab with Smarty's geolocation, the latitude, longitude, and then also just kind of mapping to where Google thinks that address is. And a lot of times they're pretty close, but sometimes there's a lot more disparity, especially with like those newer addresses. We're going to get it right on the dot where it's supposed to be, and Google is going to say, oh, it's, like maybe a block or two over this way when it's really not.
I'm looking at it right now. I just ran an address through that single address. There is the map with the geocoding in the bottom right corner compared to Google Maps, so you can see where Google puts that pin, just like Camille is saying. Adam may cover this in the next session that'll start in a half an hour, but we'll see what this group has to say about it. Compared to other address providers, how does Smarty handle rate limiting? I know that can be a big issue, especially in the like fintech or insurance space, where they're trying to figure out how to process a large number of addresses very quickly. How does Smarty handle that as opposed to others?
Lyle, do you have some comments? I mean, I have some
I
comments.
could. Maybe I could start and then someone could jump in. Well, we have a couple of different kinds of rate limits, but the way you're describing it, Andrew, it sounds more like a plan-based rate limit. I mean, a lot of the solution to that is just have a fast service. When we sell our US address verification plans, just off the website, you get a rate limit of, I believe it's 25,000 per second. And that's not a limitation of the API, but that's just to give you an idea of the speeds that we support out of the box, 25,000 per second. And that's going to support most everyone's use case anyway. We can do speeds much, much faster than that in custom plans. So, I mean, that's the main solution, is just have a system that can handle the speeds, and the rate limit isn't an issue. If you happen to have a plan and bump into a rate limit, there are, especially for server-side calls, there are graceful ways to handle that with retry logic, right? And so have retry logic in place such that when you get back a 429 error, there's typically there's a header that comes back, retry after. It'll give you the number of seconds to wait to retry the call. So you can set up retry logic as a fail-safe in case you're bumping into a rate limit. Anyone else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I mean, there are a couple of different types of rate limits. There's the user-based rate limits, as Lila said, and there's also security rate limits that we have depending on what's happening. And so just know that you will get the return codes that are there. Another thing to note is our SDKs, most of them do also have some retry logic in them built in. So if you're using our SDKs, there's some helpful ways to handle that if you need it. So just be aware that it's there. And if you are running into those, support can help walk you through what those might mean if you have challenges there that you're not able to figure out or have questions about. But there are different plans that we have with different rate limits. So if you're routinely running into a rate limit, then it's something to look at to change your plan for that.
And as a completely shameless plug, if, on the other hand, if you're running into, it's like, whoa, 25,000 a second rate limit, how do you even hit those speeds? Then I highly encourage that you tune into my next Pinpoint presentation in 30 minutes, where I'll show you exactly how to do that and more.
Shameless plug.
Very shameless. Very good. Very good. Okay, so now we're going to ask a couple of culture questions. Uber mentioned in the keynote in Jayo's presentation, Uber gave a little shout out. They mentioned that Smarty used to feel really small and scrappy. I mean, I know we're only 14, 15 years old now. And Uber's been with us for quite some time, and we've grown and we've become bigger. But one of the things he said that was really fun is that product is right next to engineering. Like, our product team is regularly working with engineering. We have support regularly working with everyone. There's not really, I mean, we've made an effort to keep the silos non-existent. How do you, especially those of you that have been in engineering for lots of years, how does this compare to a typical software engineering or software company? What are your experiences with the benefits of the way Smarty builds software versus the way other companies do?
Well, what I have seen is that there's very little politics here at Smarty. A support person can just come right over and talk with an engineer, and we're only just a few feet apart. And so we really are accessible to one another. And I really like that culture. And it really like this Arabic issue that we were talking about, working closely with support, working closely with another vendor, and we work that out, and we're going to deploy as soon as I get done with this webinar. We're going to deploy a new version of International Street. So the turnaround is quick, and I think that's a great advantage to customers. They can report an issue, we can find it, we can deploy it, and it can all be in the same day.
Do we have any examples of that where we might not have to mention the customer's name?
Any examples of reporting issues or?
Right, reporting issues and then having a deploy fix quickly.
Oh,
I
well,
can't tell you how many times I may have had a problem
Yeah.
with an app or some piece of software, and I chat and I'm like, "Hey, this is working." They're like, "Yeah, that's a bug. We're working on it." And then 6 months later, I get the, "Hey, congratulations, we solved your bug."
right. Yeah. No, this happens quite often. So,
I have a small example that's kind of from yesterday. Is there was somebody having an issue where the auto renew is off for their subscription, and they're like, I should be able to turn this on, right? And so someone from the product team put something into our inbox on the front end team and said, hey, or I guess it was even into the account, the back end accounts team inbox. But our team is like regularly watching the inbox too. And so me and someone else from the accounts team was able to jump on that like right away and look into it. And we actually were able to find what the issue was. It ended up being on the front end. And I have like the fix, again, like Brian said, ready to go after this session. I'll go ahead and deploy that and get that fixed. But it's all of that is possible, yeah, because we have this open communication. Like, I don't think there's a day that goes by that there's not somebody from product inside our room. And if support is wanting to talk to us, it's not like, oh, we don't, it's not like they're annoying. It's like, oh yeah, we're all on the same team. Let's help each other. And then another thing is our deploy processes. I think we've tried to make it on front end and back end so we can do small, frequent deploys often. And so there's not that barrier there. We can, if we need to put out a fix, that can happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that, what you said there too. I think our DevOps is really good in deploying quickly, but we also put a lot of effort, and this comes from the founder down into the culture here. Like I've been to a number of different cultures, a number of different companies and so on, and it's a culture that's different than anyone I've ever been to. So we really try to see people as people and not just as objects from those types of viewpoints. And that goes not just within the teams, but across teams, and then extends to our customers too. And so that's where we really try and develop partnerships with an Uber and things like that to really try and get their feedback. And we're not perfect, of course, but we really do try and we do cross-team lunches, we do cross-team activities, we do activities as a company. We do these things so that we get to know each other as people in addition to just working with each other. And so that makes communication happen at a higher level because we're all friends to a large degree too. And so that's very nice to be able to hang out with the people that you work with, even if they're not within your local team.
I remember when I was a brand new tech support guy, and developers would talk to me as if I were a legit human being, that there was no, oh, who are you? That I knew nothing at the, hardly anything at the time, and they just treated me great. And that's kind of how we are here. So, yeah.
That's great. Brent Frankham, who's the head of our product management team, he chatted in and he said one benefit is that we're not annoying, which just means he hasn't spent enough time with me. But I mean, that's a genuine benefit. It's difficult to Ken's point, it's difficult to see someone as a problem or to have politics and try to figure things out when you are spending enough time with someone to see them as a person. And like Lyle said, to just treat them like another equal that just has a different background than you. But outside of that, you're the same. And that it's difficult to view someone like that as being annoying if you just know they're coming from a different background. And that's something that we've stressed here at Smarty. All right, I don't see any other questions, and I might let these developers go deploy stuff unless there's another question that pops up in the next couple seconds. I don't see any other questions, so thanks everybody for your time. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you guys in the next session if you can make it. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.